We are going to be talking about the Dexter Taylor case, the homemade guns case that we have shared a couple times on this show. Today, we're going to be talking to Dexter Taylor's criminal defense attorney. So, really interested to hear about this case. One of the big questions I have is why did we hear that the judge was not allowing any talk of the Second Amendment or the Constitution in his trial? Dexter was convicted of making guns at home. New York State calls it ghost guns. The Biden administration calls it ghost guns. Dexter, when he was on the show, of course, pushed back on that and said that was just a word that was developed to scare people. You make the decision when you're watching the show. We're going to be taking questions from my editorial board on Locals. So it's just a really interesting case. I mean, where are our freedoms if you want to make guns? Should you be able to make guns? Those are the things we're going to be talking about today. Don't forget, if you want to send mail directly to me, if you're somebody who still has paper at home and a pen and you know how to write, you don't just text, you can send me mail to P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. I got a really nice note today from, hang on, I got to go back. I think it's Sherry. Let me just make sure. Okay. So, Sylvia sent me a really nice note, and she sent me seeds that grow really well in Florida. I thought that was really nice of her. So Sylvia, thank you for that. And then Mark and Darnell sent donations to the show to keep us running. So thank them. If you're somebody, if you're watching for free, thank you to people like Darnell and Mark who keep the show going. P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. Also, don't forget, if you're somebody who is in need of emergency care, for instance, well, other than calling 911, but say you need a pharmacy, obviously the show, we talk a lot about natural health here. I, for instance, however, have to have an EpiPen on me at all times because I potentially could go in anaphylactic shock getting stung by a hornet. So if you go to telerx.club/AlisonM, you get 20% off your order. The prices are already a lot cheaper than you'll get at your local pharmacy. The EpiPen, for instance, is like half the price that you would pay at your pharmacy. I was quoted $500 by my pharmacy, and I left it at the counter. So anyway, I got mine through TeleRx. And again, telerx.club/AlisonM. You get 20% off your order. You don't need a doctor's prescription. You just consent to the use of the drug, and a doctor that works with TeleRx approves it, and you get your order within really a couple of days. So if you are somebody who is concerned about the freedom to make choices like this for yourself in a particular state, for instance, you don't trust your doctor, check out telerx.club/AlisonM. Again, 20% off your order. Okay, so I'm going to bring in Mr. Varghese right now. Vinoo Varghese is Dexter Taylor's attorney. Thanks for being here. Sorry I caught you when you were drinking your water.
That's okay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Alison.
Okay, so this is a story that's been really interesting to follow because we, a lot of times when we cover this stuff, we don't actually know the person or talk to the person ahead of time. We just see the headline. But in this particular case, we had Dexter on a couple of times. So we kind of feel like we got to know him a little bit on the show. And, he seems like a very level-headed, reasonable guy. And yet he's in jail right now. He was facing almost 20 years, but he got 10. And this is the NBC headline: Brooklyn man gets 10 years for arsenal of ghost guns, including rifles, found at home. Now, the first thing that I think is funny, because I've had other commentators talk about like the use of the word arsenal. For instance, former news director at TV, who ran a bunch of TV stations and is also, somebody who tried to educate his staff about the Second Amendment, really criticizes the use of this word because he's always like, how do you even define that? What does that mean? I mean, it just seems like it's a term thrown out there by the media that's very afraid of guns to also kind of make you afraid of guns. So my first big question for you about the case is, what do you think about the media coverage of it? I mean, has it helped or hurt? Has it been indifferent? Do you think, it's not as bad as it could be? Just give us the general sense of what you think the media coverage has been.
The media coverage has been expected, right? So what you have is these publications using words that were given to them by the district attorney's office. So the district attorney in the County of Kings, aka Brooklyn, also known as, if it were its own city, would be the fourth or the fifth largest city in the country, used the term arsenal the day that Dexter was arrested. So when the joint task force between the NYPD and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms broke into his home. They recovered the 13 firearms, 9 of them which were pistols, 4 were the semi-automatic type. The use of that word began there in their initial press release. So the press is just, going off of that. The flip side of that is that Dexter's gotten a lot of positive press thanks to people like you. And so because of people like you, we've been on different uh, networks or shows. We were on Newsmax together as the trial was beginning, and then I went on alone afterwards because Dexter's in prison right now. And the goal is that more people will cover this case, and it actually could be a lot more because I think this is the kind of case that really makes people of a left-leaning bent very uncomfortable, and I can go into that.
Yeah, why do you say
Why is
that?
it? Well, because Dexter. Let me put it
Because
this
he's
way.
black?
Absolutely, right. That's a big part of it. In New York City. So my office is here on this is Wall Street behind me. My office is at 2 Wall Street. I'm a 10-minute walk to the courts of Manhattan, both state and federal. I'm less than 10 minutes away by subway to the Brooklyn courts, including the Brooklyn court where Dexter was convicted. The way that people that are into guns or so-called Second Amendment types, or whatever you want to, whatever term you use. I learned new terms from Dexter, 2A people, or the way that the left or the media here in New York City, in particular, here, Boston, D.C., L.A., wherever, portrays people that support the Second Amendment is that they are white, uneducated, and racist. Dexter is obviously none of those. He's not white. He is highly educated. He went to one of the top high schools in the country, famous, called Stuyvesant High School, graduated there at 16. Then we went on to Johns Hopkins. And, well, if he's a racist, nobody knows it, right? So that doesn't really work with him. So I think that, then on top of it, I mean, when you think about the case itself, he built guns in his own house, never took them out, never fired them. He had a permit from a gun range in Manhattan to fire at the gun range. He was never interested in being a political guy, but the ATF tracked him. So what they do is they collect data. They don't have the resources to prosecute everybody. In a lot of states, most states, this is completely legal, what Dexter did. So what they do is share that data with local law enforcement, and local law enforcement runs with it. In this case, the NYPD and the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. So they share that data with the NYPD Ghost Gun Task Force. And then the Ghost Gun Task Force went to the District Attorney's Office, Violent Crime Enterprise Unit, and got a search warrant and broke down Dexter's door, arrested him. And eventually, after 2+ years of legal wranglings, we got to trial, and we got what we expected. We knew he would lose. I mean, I can also tell you, I've been a lawyer from September, entering my 25th year of practice. I've never gone into a trial knowing I would lose. Have I lost before? Sure. I've won the vast majority of my trials. This was a case we expected to lose because we knew we were going to get hamstrung by the judge. And then our only chance of success would be to go through the New York State appeals process and lose every step of the way. So we expected to lose at the trial court. We expect to lose at the intermediate appellate court. We expect to lose in New York's high court, which is in Albany. And then we have to come back down to federal court, which is ironically right across the street from where Dexter was convicted, in state court. And I believe we believe we have a real chance of winning there.
Okay. One question that came from my locals community that I think is a good follow-up for that, and if you're not on the editorial board, consider paying $5 a month to be on it. I mean, most people get to ask like 3 to 4 questions a week times 4. That's like almost 16 questions. That's like less than 50 cents a question to go one-on-one with some really interesting people on the internet. And it's a great way to keep the show going. So if you see value in the show and what people like Mr. Varghese are saying today, then consider donating, and you get the value of getting to ask the questions. Stoop Dog says, okay, quote, a well-regulated militia. Those 4 words imply a lot. First, that there should be regulations on arms. Second, that people possessing arms should at least have some training to be in a militia. 3, that someone possessing arms has been vetted by a militia. I saw Dexter Taylor's interview with Alison. He seems like a very intelligent man. I am not worried about someone like him possessing a gun. Why did he not do the paperwork needed to make what he was doing legal? Was he just unaware of the regulations?
So, with all due respect to Stoop Dog, I like the name. He leaves out the rest of the Second Amendment, which is that the individual right to bear arms, and this has been decided already that the individual has a right to bear arms. In that decision, which is the Heller decision, which came out of D.C., the case originally came out of Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court said that states can regulate possessions of firearms. But what Dexter did is look at things from the point of view of the Second Amendment. There is nothing more wholesome or proper under the Second Amendment than to build firearms in your own home. He wasn't possessing. So those cases that the U.S. Supreme Court said, or those instances where they said they can regulate, generally referred to possession of a firearm when you're outside your own home. And so this is a unique case of a guy that's building guns in his own home, not using them, not involved in criminal activity, because in 2022, when the Bruin decision came out in the United States Supreme Court, which found that New York's licensing regime was unconstitutional, well, a number of criminal defendants who had cases pending asserted a Bruin defense that this was their Second Amendment right to do so. But the overwhelming majority of those, and I know because I spoke to the head of the public defender's office, the appeals bureau there, they brought cases to the New York's High Court and they got rejected. Almost all of those people were people that were using a firearm in connection with a crime. So Dexter, there was no underlying crime, there was nothing there, but yet he stands convicted of a violent felony. The picture that you were showing earlier, Alison, I believe was from Reason Magazine. Reason Magazine did a nice piece comparing, if you go down, if you can scroll down, Alison, on that.
Keep going.
Yeah, if you slow down here, actually, yeah, go down. Sorry, yeah. If you go back, there's a part.
Oh, here is it. This we're talking about in November. LaShawn Craig.
Yeah.
No.
Go back up.
No.
It's slightly up. It's there. And the problem with the case, it is. Sorry, it's a very short article.
Well, tell me what you're looking for, and I'll look for it.
Billy Binion, who I've spoken to, the author of this article, compares Dexter's case in Brooklyn to 3 other cases. So he talks about a guy who went to jail for 7 years for molesting a child, if I'm not mistaken. If you go down, there it is. Perusing
here we go.
Other recent wins is instructed. A 7-year sentence for a man who repeatedly sexually assaulted a young girl. A 3 to 9 year sentence for a man convicted of second-degree manslaughter. And a 3.5 to 7-year sentence for a woman who stole $1 million from 9 people. What did Dexter do? And he got a decade. The DA's office, the prosecutor, asked for 10 years. The judge gave 10 years. I mean, it's just, it was obnoxious. It's outrageous. The minimum was 3.5. Normally, if you're charged with 1 and you're out on the street, you plead it down a level and maybe you get 2 years, right? That's normally the plea bargaining policy. Dexter instructed me not to take not to seek any plea bargain. He was not interested in any guilty plea. So he knew that this could happen. I told him, if we go to trial and we're going to lose, you're going to likely this judge is going to bang you out. And so, getting back to Snoop Dogg's question about did he not know the regulations, Dexter believed that, and I believe that he's governed, that New York must comport itself with the supreme law of the land, which is the Second Amendment, while states have a right to regulate what Dexter's did, building on his own home with no, this guy wasn't out there promoting. There were no pictures of him out on the internet, flashing guns or anything like that. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He was interested in becoming he's an engineer. So he was interested in becoming a gunsmith. He was looking into getting his federal firearms license to become a manufacturer of firearms. He's the furthest thing from a criminal.
All right. The next question is from Grumpy Old Man. Does he realize that the process is the punishment? But before you answer that question, everybody, if you have ever considered moving your retirement 401k, IRA over to precious metals, text Birch Gold 989-898. Put Alison with 1L in the text message box. You will get everything you ever wanted to know and more about investing in gold. Right now, if you believe it or not, which you probably do if you've listened to this commercial before, we are here in the United States paying more on the national debt, the interest on the national debt, than every other individual budget item except Social Security, which says a lot because we spend a lot on defense and we don't actually spend as much on defense as we do on that. It's getting worse. If you're someone who's been following the value of the dollar, you might be aware of that. So if you've been thinking, hey, maybe it's time to think about physical gold, precious metals. And also, I just really like the Alison Morrow show. And number 3, I'm just bored. I just want to text somebody. I pay for this phone plan and I have no one to text because I have no friends because of the last few years. Everybody's canceled me. Then you can feel like you have a friend at Birch Gold, and you should text Alison with 1L to 989-898. Get every little bit of information about whether that's right for you. Support the show at the same time. Again, text Alison, Lison, 989-898. They have helped thousands of people over the last 20 years, have a bunch of 5-star ratings, great company. So thanks to Birch Gold for sponsoring this month of the show. Again, text Alison to 989-898. What's the right website for people if they want to support him or support your work for him?
It's just Google Dexter Taylor Give Send Go.
Okay.
And this will come up immediately. That'll come up immediately.
Okay. All right. So Give Send Go, Dexter Taylor, look
That's
it up.
all you need to. Yep.
Okay.